From the headquarters of Telesa English in Quito, Ecuador, this is From the South, and I'm Emike Omoli. Welcome. We start in Venezuela, where the new currency, the sovereign bolivar, has come into force. It is anchored to the Petro cryptocurrency, and the Petro is backed by oil, gas, gold and diamonds. It's part of the government's plan to fight the world's highest inflation rate and to overcome international sanctions.
This is a process we need to go through for a recovery of our economy. It's macroeconomic and economic balance that will bring us to a process of normalization and recovery. We are covering 3 months of wage increase for small and medium-sized companies. We have the resources. I asked the finance minister, Simón Serpa, to start paying the wages from all sectors, so they don't have excuses to increase prices.
Now, over the weekend, President Maduro also announced that the minimum wage will rise from 3 million bolivars to 180 million bolivars. That's to help keep up with the record inflation. He explained that all salaries, pensions and prices will be tied to the cryptocurrency. 1 petro will equal $60 US. Communications Minister Jorge Rodriguez has assured Venezuelans that the new economic plan will help to stabilize the country. He says fuel will be sold at international prices to those who don't have a subsidy card. This is to avoid fuel smuggling to other countries.
What are the mafias in Colombia that steal Venezuelan fuel going to do now? The economic war will be defeated by this new economic plan. The Bolivarian world government will also provide more benefits so that small business and medium industry workers earn a monthly salary of 1,800 sovereign bolivars. The Petro is a strong currency and we will use it to calculate the salaries of workers. Our aggressors will not be able to attack the sovereign bolivar because it is anchored to the Petro.
Meanwhile, Brazil has sent its troops to the border with Venezuela after residents of a border town drove Venezuelan immigrants from their camps. The attacks happened over the weekend in the town of Pacaraima. Hundreds of Venezuelans were forced to flee across the border on foot. They left their belongings behind, which residents then set on fire. The locals also used tires to block the only road crossing between the two countries. Venezuela's Foreign Minister Jorge Arreaza has expressed concern over those attacks. He said both governments are in contact over the issue. Venezuela is sending some of its consulate staff to Pacaraima to assess the situation. Peru says the suspects in the assassination attempt on Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro are not in the country. Venezuela asked the Peruvian government to find 2 citizens and 6 military officials believed to be in Peru. Migration Superintendent Eduardo Sevilla says they have no immigration records of the 2 suspects. He did pledge to check if the military officials are in Peru. 6 people have been arrested in Colombia over the bus crash near Ecuador's capital, which killed 23 people. Those arrested are linked to a drug gang. Colombia's Attorney General, Nestor Humberto Martinez, said those held are part of a group shipping drugs in vehicles. More than half a ton of marijuana was found on the bus destined for Chile.
We have more than 1,000 hours of telephone recordings that allow us to prove the nexus of this organization with the drug trafficking business. And this organization has to do with the poster of the narco buses.
Former Brazilian President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva has officially thrown his hat into the ring for the presidential bid. Meanwhile, the United Nations has asked the judiciary to allow him to exercise his political rights as a candidate. Mia Alberti takes a look at the candidates so far.
The electoral campaign in Brazil is on, but who are the candidates and what do they support? Leading the polls is former President Lula da Silva from the Workers' Party. A former union leader, he's well known for his social programs which helped fight poverty and hunger. and he's currently serving 12 years in prison for corruption and money laundering. Because of that, he might not be able to run. Instead, Fernando Haddad could take his place. The Minister of Education under Lula's government, he also served as mayor of São Paulo. His administration was known for liberal policies, but also for major protests that cost him a re-election, and the latest polls only gave him a 2% rating. From the left to the extreme right, Jair Bolsonaro is the candidate for the Social Liberal Party. He served in the military for 17 years and picked a former general to be his vice president. Together, they support easier gun access and the possibility of military intervention. Their populist views appeal to a large conservative and evangelist crowd in Brazil. Two opposite sides of the political spectrum, that's where the most popular candidates here in Brazil are standing, and that shows that the Brazilian people are divided, but experts say that's a political divide, not a social one.
Na campanha eleitoral parece final de campeonato.
The electoral campaign feels like the end of a football championship. Normally in society, there is no problem. Only at the end of the campaign do we see this polarization, and electoral campaigns have always created this. Unfortunately, this ends up being reflected in society. Some groups feed off this racial discourse, so in the long run, this can have serious consequences.
Between Lula and Bolsonaro, there are several other more moderate candidates, although not nearly as popular. It is the case of the ecologist Marina Silva, or centrists Ciro Gomes and Geraldo Alckmin, who only have 4% of intended votes. Other candidates, such as Guilherme Boulos, have less than 1% of votes. These are some of the most contested elections in Brazil ever, and the division we are seeing right now might continue after the vote. If that happens, that will be another challenge for the next president of Brazil. Mialberti, Telesur, in São Paulo.
We're taking a short break now. Join us in a few minutes.
Me gustaría tener un mundo mucho más inclusivo para todos.
没有贫穷.
Στην ανθρωπότητα θα ήθελα να δω παραπάνω αγάπη, αγνότητα, πολιτισμό και επαφή με τη φύση.
Que el ser humano despierte su conciencia.
I want humanity to see itself as one humanity.
We are the people, a space, a voice. We are Telesur without borders.
Telesur brings you special interviews with social and political personalities. Monday, from Washington. Tuesday, from Mexico. Wednesday, from Caracas. Thursday, from Quito. Friday, from Havana. Analysis about our continent's reality. Weekdays, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Thousands of Nicaraguans have taken to the streets of the capital Managua once again to support President Daniel Ortega. The government supporters carried flags and banners calling for peace. They accused the opposition of being part of a foreign-backed coup to unseat Ortega and say some of them are terrorists. The country has been in the grip of a political crisis since mid-April that has left at least 265 people dead. That's according to the Commission for Truth, Peace and Justice.
We march for the victims, for all the mates who were killed during the coup they attempted against the government. That is why we are demanding justice, because human rights have to be the same for everyone, not just for one group or another group. It has to be even. Human rights are for all Nicaraguans.
On the flip side, thousands of anti-government demonstrators also protested in Managua, demanding President Ortega step down. They asked for the release of imprisoned activists as well. Demonstrators draped themselves in the colors of the Nicaraguan flag and called for justice. They want the government to call for early elections. Threats against social leaders in Colombia City, Cartagena have triggered special security measures. The spokesperson for City Hall, Yolanda Wong, announced that 12 social leaders and their families have been threatened, targeted for their work in the community. An extraordinary security council has been set up in order to protect them. Meanwhile, social organizations, peace activists and religious leaders have met to discuss the murder of social leaders in Colombia.
More than 100 social and religious organizations have met in Bogota to prepare for the Week of Peace, a project that aims to unite the Colombian people under the slogan, "There is life, there is hope, we keep building peace."
The Week for Peace is an act in the name of hope. We believe that it's necessary to have hope despite the murders, persecutions, and the efforts to destroy peace. We think it is important to comply with the peace agreement signed with the FARC, especially the chapter regarding ethnic groups, indigenous and Afro-descendant communities.
During the meeting, activists denounced the systematic killings of social leaders. Social and Catholic organisations, along with the Attorney General's office, have started a campaign against the spate of violent deaths in the country.
The Week for Peace is an act in the name of hope. We believe that it's necessary to have hope despite the murders, persecutions and the efforts to destroy peace. We think it is important to comply with the peace agreement signed with the FARC, especially the chapter regarding ethnic groups, indigenous and Afro-descendants.
Activists are also denouncing the corruption in the judiciary, which according to them has increased since the peace accords were signed.
We see a clear intention to blame social leaders for violent acts and link them to armed groups to justify their murders. It is important to investigate every case.
Monsignor Fabio Heno made a call to protect life and in particular for the government to continue dialogue with the National Liberation Army.
The National Council for Peace made a call for the dialogues to continue and for a new bilateral ceasefire to be agreed on. We also hope for hostilities and kidnappings to end so that citizens can participate in the dialogues as well.
The Week for Peace will take place from the 2nd to the 9th of September across Colombia. Several forums, demonstrations and artist events are expected to take place in support of the project.
Brazil's northeastern state of Alagoas has declared a 6-month state of emergency in 38 cities due to drought and water shortage. Over 200,000 people have been affected, based on government records. Arapiraca is among the 38 cities, a place that thrives on tobacco harvest. This year, however, the area has experienced a bad harvest.
The water is only enough for 2 days for one family. After it runs out, we will have to take a bucket and ride the motorbike to find water in other places.
Mexico's President-elect Andrés Manuel López Obrador has been outlining his political plans as he prepares to take office. Austerity and education were high on the agenda during a meeting of his political party.
The Morena party made clear the kind of government it intends to be when it takes office on December 1st, during its 5th Congress meeting.
An
austere, honest and effective government that will liberate the funds of the country for its development and for the benefit of the people.
The party president highlighted main aim of the Morena party.
We've sowed a seed in all of Mexico. There is proof that a revolution of awareness has started.
One of the topics at the summit was giving away of 50% federal funding, which by law they're entitled to. This is one of the austerity measures of AMLO's government.
Cada día Every day I am more convinced that the work is being done. I am convinced of a big change that lies ahead for Mexico.
For the first time in Mexico's history, we are going to have a government for the people and by the people. And Mexico is going to prosper. We are going to start the reconstruction of our country.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador will take the oath on December 1st in the Zócalo of Mexico City.
In Colombia, the southern city of Cali has celebrated its African roots. The Petronio Alvarez Pacific Music Festival highlighted Afro-Colombian traditional artists and musicians. People danced to the sounds of African rhythms, a very special festival for the Colombian Pacific musical's folklore. Cali has the second largest Afro population in Latin America after Brazil's Salvador de Bahia. We're taking a short break now. Join us in a few minutes.
With developing events being presented through analysis. Our coverage transcends borders. With renowned journalist Walter Martinez.
Salud, amigos. Tripulantes de nuestra querida, contaminada y única nave espacial.
Dossier. Weekdays. Only on Telesur.
Y ponga usted las cámaras, señor director.
In a world infested by inequalities, abuse of power, and injustice, the American journalist Abby Martin covers the struggle for fundamental rights worldwide, deep into the search of files which uncover the empire's strategies through our screen and web platform in English. The Empire Files with Abby Martin. Tuesday, only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Rescuers in the Indian state of Kerala have been struggling to bring people to safety after unprecedented floods that have killed at least 370 people. Nearly 700,000 people have been displaced in the state's worst floods for a century. Thousands still remain trapped without food or water. Continuous heavy rain has damaged more than 100 bridges, making rescue extremely difficult. Food, medicine and water are being dropped from helicopters to isolated areas. To know more on the flood situation, we're joined by Hassanul Bana, a journalist based in New Delhi. Thanks for joining us. Now, I believe you have family members in Kerala right now. What have they been telling you?
Yes, actually, this was monsoon season in Kerala. Rain is going away, but what happened after 1 month of monsoon, rain became strong and all areas become overflowed by water, and people now 22,000 people yesterday rescued by state rescuers and fishermen, and today they continue their task to rescue more people. They evacuated 1 million people to the relief camps. So now 1 million people, they are living in rescue camps. So we have to face this situation. And on the other side, we have to save more people from the remote areas. You know the geography and the natural situation of the Kerala. People, they are living in remote villages. Helicopters, choppers cannot go there because of trees and water body, trees and other difficulties. So, fishermen became the saviors of thousands of people. Fishermen, they used their fishing boats to save these people.
Okay, and if, as we're being told, that these are the worst floods in the century, how prepared do you think was the local government to handle an emergency on this scale?
Actually, this is an important question for Kerala. Kerala government, they are preparing some sort of work, but they could not address the issue. The actual thing, Keralites, the people of Kerala, they came forward and they tried to make many groups, and voluntarily they prepared a task to save these lives. So all people, they came outside and they helped each other. They invited fishermen to save these people. And there was a criticism on the part of Kerala government that they didn't invite Indian military to save the people. But the Chief Minister, Pinarayi Vijayan of the Kerala state, he justified it as military cannot enter into remote areas of Kerala. They don't know the geography of Kerala. He justified in that manner. Actually, Kerala government, this is ruled by a left democratic front led by Communist Party of Marxist.
Okay.
And the Indian government, this is ruled by Bharatiya Janata Party, the right-wing force of the Indian politics. So there is such an ideological issue in between two governments. The CPM government is afraid of, left government is afraid of the approach of the right-wing groups. If they enter to the territory of this communist government, then it will make some political issues for in the coming 2019 election. So there is some sort of political issues also involving in this flood situation.
Mr. Banner, I'm just going to ask you briefly, because the line is not fantastic. A lot of people's livelihoods would have been affected by this. What do you think the people of Kerala would want in terms of government help in the next few weeks or months?
Actually, the people are the real heroes in the tragedy. You know that this is the tragedy in the first time in a century. People, when the Telugu submerged hundreds of villages in central Kerala, fishermen, they came forward to save thousands of stranded people. They actually, you remember the memories of their dear ones lost in the Oki tragedy in Alappuzha. Over 1,400 fishermen from coastal villages, they saved on that day the lives of people. In the same situation is repeated here. National Fish Workers Coordination Forum Secretary C. Peter, actually, he asked the fishermen to come forward. So if fishermen didn't came to the scenario, then death toll will be raised to 50,000 or 100,000. This situation is changed after fishermen came to the scene, and all people, all villagers, and all urban
Mr.
people,
Banner,
all together.
I want to thank you so much for providing us with that update. Unfortunately, we've run out of time, but we do appreciate your contribution. Now it's time to bring you some other news from around the world.
The man who drove his car into civilians before hitting security barriers outside the Houses of Parliament in the UK has appeared in court. Saleh Qatar is charged with attempted murder after 3 people were injured. The accident occurred on August the 14th. Authorities say Qatar wasn't known to the security service MI5 but is suspected of terrorism. Greece has ended its reliance on a 3-year bailout programme, the biggest in financial history. The programme led to unpopular cuts to public spending, something which is set to continue as the country works to restore its economy, and some Greeks remain pessimistic about the future.
The exit from bailouts doesn't mean anything because wages doesn't rise. Health services are terrible. Everything is terrible. So it means nothing to us. What have we got to be happy or celebrate about? More of the same? Just the words change. We exit the bailouts and enter enhanced surveillance. So it's exactly the same thing.
The extent of the damage caused by 2 new earthquakes in Indonesia's Lombok Island has been revealed. Drone footage showed just how much devastation has been left behind. A tremor of a 6.3 magnitude quake on Sunday killed at least 10 people. Previously, strong earthquakes in July left nearly 500 dead and thousands displaced in the country.
Separated Korean families have been allowed to reunite temporarily in North Korea. About 330 South Koreans from 89 families met their relatives with tears and feelings of joy and disbelief after more than 6 decades apart. This is the first time in 3 years a reunion has taken place. Families have been separated since the 1950 to 1953 war in the peninsula. Palestinian activist Ahed Tamimi spoke exclusively with Telesur on Sunday about her hopes for her people and what it's like to live under Israeli occupation.
أحلامي هي إنه تتحرر فلسطين. طبعا أخلص الجامعة وأكون محامية ناجحة. طبعا يعني وأنا بالسجن أكتر إشي اشتقت له كان إنه أكون مع صاحباتي مع أهلي أنام على تختي. طبعا في كتير أكلات اشتقت لها وأنا بالسجن مثل الدوالي يعني إنه بالسجن ما فيش يعني زي الدوالي اللي بنعملها بالدار. إنه إحنا بنتعامل بعنصرية لأنه إحنا طالعين على المدرسة بوقفنا 1000 حاجز ومرات كثير بنطلعش حتى مش بس على المدرسة وعلى الجامعة وعلى الشغل. إحنا يعني بنقدرش نطلع لأنه في أكثر من حاجز بنمر منه لأنه لما أنت تيجي تطلع على أرضك بتلاقي حدا تاني فيها ومانعينك تفوتها لأنه أنت بس بدك تروح على بلدك.
And with that, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and many other stories, find them on our website, telesurtv.net/English. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for Telesur English. I'm Emiko Omolu and thank you for watching.
Our actions have an impact on the environment.